Hey, welcome to another edition of the Chiefs Outsiders podcast. We're coming off a great game on Sunday Night Football. There was just a little bit of extra juice in this game when you've got a rematch of a Super Bowl from 2 years ago on a primetime game. You could just feel that there was a different energy, and it couldn't have went much better for Kansas City. What is the biggest takeaway you had after that game?
I think you hit the nail on the head with the different energy and just the polar opposite of what we saw a week ago and what we saw yesterday from this football team. It just couldn't be further from very different looking offense and team.
And there were in a lot of ways, it doesn't surprise me that Kansas City scored 41 points. It doesn't surprise me to see Kansas City win by double digits. What did surprise me was rushing for 189 yards
Mhm.
to, what did Tampa Bay have? 3 rushing yards?
Yep, 6 carries for 3 yards.
There are a lot of great things to take away from this game. And I'm going to try to think of a few negatives too, because last week we lost a game to a far inferior opponent, and I looked for positives because they exist, and sometimes there's fluky things. In this game, I'm looking for negatives, and we just finished rewatching the game, and it's hard to find very many of them. But on a positive note, a lot of the things we've seen before, amazing plays from Mahomes, a lot of things we've seen before, but I did not anticipate that rushing attack.
I don't think any of us did. I mean, on our game preview episode, I said as a fact almost, I stated it that even a successful offensive day for the Chiefs would not include an effective rushing attack. And I'm glad to be wrong. I'll say that.
Because I don't think there was a lot of hype about the Bucs defense, and I don't think it was hype. I think they're just that good. And again, if for Mahomes to spin in circles and almost fall and flip it underhand and anything else and find a way, I could have predicted that. But that was just dominance on the front lines. And so you could give game balls to a lot of people, but you got to start with the offensive line in the running game and the way those runners. I mean, we saw a lot from Pacheco.
hmm It just and Clyde too. You would just the theme all day long was finishing runs and just getting 2, 3, 4 yards extra on top of every run. It seemed like throughout the day.
Whenever there was one where Pacheco's running to the left side, and was it David?
Levante David, yeah.
He's coming up to make the tackle, and he spins away from it, and you're like, okay, by that spin, he's going to fall forward for 2 more yards. But he maintained his balance and ended that with like a 9 yard run.
And that was down in the red zone too.
And I think there's something about the fact that Pacheco runs so hard that it feels like Clyde's running a little harder too now, like little friendly competition, and I don't want to lose my job to this rookie.
And I think a lot of that also might just be the overall attitude of the Chiefs offense and the defense too. The whole team I feel like really embodied that attitude in this game of just we are the aggressor, we're the bully, and we're not going to lose this game.
Yeah, and staying on the running game just a little bit longer. It's one thing to come into a game as a passing team and maybe have the Buccaneers say, this is a passing team. We're great defense. That not be worried about the run, and they're playing the pass and you're able to run early. But at the end of the game, when they knew we were going to run, and the last 2 drives, we're picking up first downs with 3 straight run plays. And I think there were 3 first downs actually gained with just running plays. Then we had the interception, which was one of the very few negatives. And then on one of the first downs at the very end, we had that holding penalty. But we were running the ball against the Bucs when they knew we were going to run it.
And that's it really is a nobody since Tampa, or since Todd Bowles has been there in the last 4 years, has run on Tampa the way the Chiefs did yesterday.
because they've got the great D linemen, and then everybody knows the two linebackers who fly.
Yeah, they've and it Levante David and Devin White cover so much ground from the middle of the field. I mean, it's hard to find one guy like that in the league that can legitimately cover sideline to sideline in the run and pass, and they have two of them. And then Vita Vea, who is like the largest human on the planet and probably one of the strongest as well. And man, it was that first rushing touchdown by Clyde. The We had Creed and Tooney on a double team on Vita Vea, and they drove him 4 or 5 yards back, and he wound up on his back in the end zone. And it was a beautiful block.
So there's something special about being able to salt a game away with a 4 minute offense. Because how many games has Kansas City been in during this Andy Reid run? It's been fantastic. But we had a game where we're up by two scores or up by one score with the ball and 4 minutes left and then lose the game.
Well, I mean, you don't have to look very far. You can go back to last week with a 4 point lead, and they had the ball 3 or 4 times in the second half with an opportunity. Not, I mean, it didn't have to be some 12 play drive to salt the game away. Just go score, and they couldn't do it. But it is especially satisfying to do it running the ball with a smash mouth attitude against a team that takes a lot of pride in not letting that happen.
Let's say not even that we're going to, because we're not going to run for 189 yards every week. But And the 4 minute offense is even tough, but just a legitimate threat and respect level out of a running game would do so much. Because when we saw Mahomes take the league by storm and, I mean, put everybody on notice his first year, and then teams adjusted. And one reason that teams have sometimes been able to shut us down is because they just don't have to play the run. And if we can have a legitimate threat of the running game, it opens everything else up.
Yeah, and it was phenomenal. I mean, I wonder genuinely when the last time in the Andy Reid era that the Chiefs had a even pass run balance.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I don't even just running the ball 30 times in a game. I wonder when the last time that happened was.
So that's a huge positive. Then let's not overlook the most obvious thing that the three, well, we'll start with two. Two, because all three of them are, but two of the greatest players in the franchise history played at the top of their games. Kelsey was phenomenal. Other than one play where he was getting chewed out for something, uh, Kelsey was phenomenal. From the second offensive play of the game, to the back shoulder low throw, which was intentional, but that sliding diving catch right on the goal line on a converting a first down, just over and over. Kelsey was great.
hmm It's just 15 and 87. It's third and Kelsey.
And again, if there's a team where you think he might struggle against, it's those two linebackers from Tampa Bay that could give him a hard time. And we sure as heck didn't see it last night.
Yeah, no, he got a little payback from that Super Bowl game where he struggled with Levante David a little bit.
And then we had the quarterback. What was the quarterback? Is it what's his name? Mahomes was ridiculous. All the talk I see today is about the one at the goal line where he does the Houdini thing. He skips around the first tackler that should have had him right there. And you think, "Oh, this is one of those." This is one of those where he gets around him and he makes some magic happen. Then you see him going to the goal line and you're like, "Oh, he's going to try to score." And I'm thinking, he's probably going to do something here, but I just hope he doesn't take a helmet to helmet trying to dive his way in.
Yeah.
And he's dancing around, and then that little basketball flip was awesome.
hmm And I was just about to say, I'm glad you said basketball because the Jordan comparisons are very valid for all the reasons on the field. and it's the killer mentality, and just he's so willing to silently prove over and over again how laughable it is that we're comparing other quarterbacks to him. But I don't know if it's always been this way or if I'm just noticing it this year, but the tongue wagging is kind of ridiculous. And I saw a close up of that play where it's during the spin. It's literally as Devin White is bearing down on him. His tongue is out and like flying back and forth as he's about to, by all indications, it looks like he's about to get leveled by a linebacker. But
So everybody's talking about that play, rightfully so. It's a great play, but it wasn't even, I don't even think that was Pat's best play of the game. You talk about the first drive was 2 plays and touchdown, short field from the turnover. The next possession for Kansas City was phenomenal. The first one, he's rolling through traffic, making guys miss, moving all over the place. And then he's doing the deal where he's moving to his left, and then there's players crossing his field of vision, and he sidearms it like a wraparound. These other players on this little sidearm throw.
around the lineman who was engaged with the defender that he was trying to avoid, and it's Mahomes. It's He's the only guy in the sport that can do it, the
You,
only guy ever.
you take it for granted because he does it all the time. But I've been watching football for over 30 years, and I've never seen anything like it. That play right there should have been the play of the game, but it wasn't even the play of the drive.
Right, for most guys that's the best play of their career. But
Then all the lasting memories of the Super Bowl were Mahomes running around like crazy, being horizontal and still getting a 30-yard accurate throw off
yeah,
to only to have it dropped, like just ridiculous. His effort level and never giving up on a play is phenomenal. And he did it like 2 plays later on that drive, being spun to the ground. He's already made one guy miss. The second guy is throwing him to the ground, and he throws it over a couple guys, drops it to Juju, I think.
yeah, and it was the most impressive part of that play was it's we see him throw out of sacks while guys are actively trying to tackle him all the time, and that's just we're kind of used to it. But this one, he's in the middle of a pump fake as the defender gets to him, and he kind of just brings the ball across his face and down, and then he's like, "Oh, okay, I can throw this now," and it was remarkable.
So let's talk for a second about quarterback greatness. Lamar Jackson runs all over the place, very exciting, trying to be a superhero, very fun to watch, very talented, not even on the same level. Then you got a guy like Brady, just a remarkable ability to make the right play at the right time. Brady and Rodgers are perfect timing, perfect decision making a lot of times. The back shoulder stuff with Rodgers, but in those are great players. But the guys, and then you've got Herbert. He just puts darts,
Mhm.
absolute missiles all over the field. Very impressive player. But there's only 2 guys I think you can make a case for being the best in the game right now, and it's Allen and Mahomes. Allen is like an alien in his own way, that he is not afraid to run over you or whatever it takes to make the play, and his ability to avoid pressure on the run and make a play is the best we'd ever seen, except for Mahomes does it even better.
Exactly. And I agree 1000% that Josh Allen is the only guy I've ever seen who truly, as much as Aaron Rodgers and Justin Herbert have all the arm talent in the world, I think Josh Allen is the guy who can actually go throw for throw with Mahomes. And whether it's rolling to his right and throwing all the way back left or whatever it is, he can make every throw.
Yep. And um, I think Allen is only that far behind Mahomes because he's amazing. But there were 3 plays that we just talked about that Josh Allen can't make. Josh Allen's got a few in his bag that maybe Pat can't make, but I think Pat proved again last night he's the guy in this league.
He's one, and it isn't 1A. He's just one.
Yep. Now, I do think the one thing in Mahomes' game, originally I used to say his one thing was he backpedaled too quick and too much at the start of his career, and he would back himself up and make some of the plays harder, where a Brady might have already thrown the ball before we see all that magic, right? And I think he's improved a lot in that area. And then if there's one thing right now, it's sometimes he can needs to put a little bit more air under passes. You mentioned a good one to me on the one to Scantling.
Yeah, that which it was a great throw. Truly, the way it was almost it's a more difficult throw, really, because it was cover two, so you've got two deep safeties on the outside of the field, and Marquez is just running straight down the middle of the field. If Pat just drops that ball in the middle of the end zone, just directly in the middle, it's a touchdown. But what he did was he threw a frozen rope back shoulder over Levante David's shoulder as he's trying to run 40 yards up the field with a receiver. And Marquez made a really impressive catch, but
Great play. Russell Wilson, who is not in the Mahomes Josh Allen category anymore. There was a time when he was considered one of the best in the league, but today he's not in the same category as those two guys. But if that was Russell Wilson, he would have thrown that ball 30 feet in the air, and it most likely Scantling catches that all by himself in the end zone because no one was catching him.
right.
So there's a few times here and there where I think he needs to put a little more air under the ball, but clear cut number one best quarterback in the league.
And it's just a reminder. It really is.
Before we keep going on individual things in this game, I want to say something big picture. I feel like when you list off the best teams in the NFL, it's pretty similar to the conversation we just had about the best quarterback in the NFL.
hmm And how much help they have at key positions and on the defensive side of the ball.
I think that the Bills are a very impressive team. The Eagles look great. But right now, Mahomes compared to Allen, you can say the eye test, say you can have an argument just by watching them and say who's better, but then you look who's actually accomplished something. And same thing with the teams. I mean, you can get excited about how the Dolphins or the Eagles look, but they haven't won a Super Bowl with a similar roster and the same core players. So I think right now, any power ranking that doesn't have Kansas City number one is flawed.
Yeah.
And the reason is because they can lose to the Colts. Anybody can lose to anybody. And if the Bills and Chiefs played each other 10 times, they might split them 5-5. But at their best, if you say every team plays at their absolute capability, Kansas City has the best team in the NFL.
Because of the quarterback. But I think we've gushed about Mahomes enough on that.
It's not, but it's not just the quarterback because you could put Patrick Mahomes on a team that goes 6-11
Right.
because you have to have the cast around him. And right now, we've got weapons at every position. We're four deep at tight end, even though one guy's down.
Yeah.
The the weapons are there. The offensive line is doing the job, and we have a defense that is young and aggressive
And
and talented.
going to get better is the thing on that side of the ball. And while I think that's a good opportunity to jump to the defense because they're getting a lot of flack for this game, like they didn't play very well. People see the score or the three touchdowns by Brady. This was another good showing for the defense as a whole, and also some individual players had great days.
I started to say the three best players on the Chiefs roster played great, and then I cut it back to two. That third guy is Chris Jones. There's a lot of young guys we're excited for. There's a lot of playmakers on the team. Chris Jones is the best player on that defense. He is a elite NFL player because he wreaks havoc almost every week, even if he's, drawing holding penalties, whatever it is. You he's he's as good as anyone in the league at defensive tackle except for maybe Aaron Donald.
Yeah, he's as dominant as a pass rusher that we've seen from the interior, other than Aaron Donald, in a long time. I mean, there no one in the league compares to what he does.
I did have one play I didn't like from Chris this week. We had the penalty last week that cost the team pretty badly. And there was a play, I think maybe in the second quarter, where Brady let go of the ball and Chris did this whole like, "Oh, I'm still falling and I'm going to grab your legs and knock you down and lay on you and kind of put my weight on you for no reason." And they didn't call a penalty, but we've had maybe 3 or 4 times in Chris Jones's career a situation where he punished a quarterback after the play was over and it was clearly over and it cost us a game.
Well, I don't know if you remember the 2018 div title game, roughing the passer on Brady.
Okay, so that would
So, yeah, there's a little caveat there,
in the
but
most memorable of all of them, he was not guilty,
right.
but he has been guilty of it quite a bit. If, Chris Jones is best player on the defense, maybe the third most important person on the roster. And I wish he would be a little more thoughtful about getting penalties that aren't part of the play.
There's definitely an argument to be had there. He can be a little bit boneheaded, but you kinda take the good with the bad there.
What did you think of the rest of the defensive line this week?
So overall, the rest of the D line, I don't think what had a great game. Karlaftis had a couple of good rushes, but and then a big tackle for loss early whenever the game was still competitive. But other than that, I mean, and I want to stress this on Karlaftis. I think to this point, he has played about as well as you could have asked for. The sack numbers, we know with any pass rusher, no matter how good you are or if you're a rookie or what, it it kind of fluctuates. The sack numbers never tell the full story, but Karloftis is second on the team in pressures behind only Chris Jones and is playing the run well. I think he played like 75% of the snaps in that game yesterday. You're getting a lot of production out of George Karloftis.
He does not look like a game wrecker, but he looks like a starting NFL defensive end 4 games into his career in a position that requires a lot of technique, a lot of discipline, a lot of understanding what the offense is doing, and a lot of physical strength to go against these giants on the offensive line. And you're going to get stronger as your career goes along, and you're going to learn more. So I think he's off to a good start to his career.
Yeah, and then the rest of the D line, I don't know that off memory. I don't know about you that anyone stands out in a good or a bad way.
We do not have a dynamic outside pass rusher, and we haven't for a long time, but everyone there seems to be doing their job. I think Dunlap is playing as good as anybody. Clark wins some snaps.
And they've been without Dana still, who is again. I mean, he has not done anything fantastic, anything special, but having a good year as a solid rotational piece
I think the weakness of the defense is probably that the front four doesn't get enough pressure without a blitz.
consistently. They have already had games, and they will have games in the future where they do, but in big moments it tends to against good lines, against good quarterbacks, like especially if you'll notice before the half in that game yesterday, the Chiefs were bringing so much pressure. It was just cover zero, man blitz every play. Because I think it was kind of a Spagnolo, just like, let's see what they can do here. We've got a good lead. But the Buccaneers, part of it's Brady. He's seen everything. But just they were picking up everything so well. And
I've always preferred an aggressive defense. I would rather lose while blitzing, and at least what we can say right now is we're creating turnovers on back-to-back games from those blitzes. We're getting sacks from them, and then you're going to give up some plays because you're if the blitz doesn't get home, guys are going to be open.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was about to get at about like the inconsistency of the pass rush with this team, especially whenever you consider that a lot of what you're hoping to get production wise is coming from unproven players. So, like, whenever you're comparing the challenge of getting pressure on a Tom Brady team versus with a banged up but solid offensive line versus the team that we're going to see on Monday night this week with Derek Carr, who is no Tom Brady when it comes to protections or blitz recognition or anything, and an offensive line that does not compare at any of the five positions. I mean, the Raiders, the Chiefs should be able to get all sorts of pressure in that game.
Yep. And we'll be disappointed if we don't see better pressure from the front four against the Raiders. So then, so defensive line was hard to measure because they didn't try to run the ball against us.
hmm
They ran the ball like 4 times and didn't get much. The rest of the if there was more rushing attempts, we probably have more to say there.
So there, that is one thing. I don't know if you saw, but this game did tie the Chiefs' all-time sing or franchise record for lowest rushing output allowed
Which is
with
nice.
3 yards. They had not done that since 1961. So
And that was actually Brady's rookie year, wasn't it?
right,
He was in that game.
yeah.
Okay.
Which I nine,
He
only
Brady had all 3 of those yards
Only
apparently.
allowing 3 rushing yards in 1961 sounds impossible because teams ran the ball 45 times a game then, but
Yeah.
somehow they did it. But it's kind of a trend going on right now in the season is nobody has ran the ball well on the Chiefs. The Colts were in a position all game to try and run the ball. That's their identity, and they were not effective. They did it a lot, but they were not effective at all. The Cardinals abandoned it immediately, and the Chargers did not have any success at all either.
So overall, defense once again, we said it last week, defense is way ahead of schedule. They're playing better right now than I was thinking they would play at any point in the season.
Yeah.
And that's after Brady had a pretty good day against them. But 10 quarterbacks who are trailing by 3 touchdowns for the entire game tend to put up a lot of yardage statistics.
And that's the only other disclaimer I'll say about the defense. I think the secondary as a whole played well. L'Jarius Sneed is obviously a bright spot for his coverage and his ability as a blitzer. But Jalen Watson got picked on by two Hall of Famers in this game. Mike Evans is off to one of the best starts to a career by any receiver in league history. I mean, he's well on his way to this being his ninth consecutive 1,000 yard season to start his career. And then Tom Brady, who is universally accepted as the greatest football player of all time. If a seventh round rookie gives up a couple of plays to those guys, you can live with it. But he was in position all night and he was battling, he was fighting. You're seeing good things from Jalen Watson.
Let's go let's go to the linebackers for a second. Where Kansas City, I would say if you list my top 3 guys I don't want to be without on the defense, it's Chris Jones, then it's probably L'Jarius Sneed, Willie Gay, and Bolton. Those are like the top 4 guys I think everybody matters, but those are your I mean, Sneed's been fantastic. But in the linebacker core, we're doing what we're doing defensively without Willie Gay, who is a, kind of a leader on that defense. He's the most athletic person in the linebacker core. And I feel like without Willie Gay, our linebackers look better than our linebackers have the last few years.
Yeah, Darius Harris has been good. And man, we said it whenever the suspension came out, and I mean, it doesn't take a genius to figure it out, but Willie Gay's speed and lack of his speed on this defense is noticeable. He's one of the fastest players on the field, regardless of position. But like you said, the Chiefs linebackers are doing fine because of Darius Harris playing above what was expected of him.
Man, so much better than expected. And I thought there was one play early, the first time the Bucks had the ball, there was a screen that got like 20 some yards, Harris saw Fournette come out and then was like, "Nah, I'm gonna go get the quarterback." I think we've seen Willie Gay stick with him on that, and that may have been a mistake there. But overall, he
It
has played very well.
it may also have been that he was like, "Oh, Fournette's gonna block me. I'm gonna give him the 1-2," and then he's like, "Where's he going?"
Yeah, that felt like he may have played that wrong, but overall, man, he has been really good, and
And Nick
it's good to
Bolton,
have that kind of depth.
we can't say enough about Nick Bolton. I mean, from the jump last year, couldn't get on the field because of Anthony Hitchens, but looked the part. And then once he did get on the field, you knew he was real. And it's from all the way this year. He's been that guy. He's the leader of the defense. He's the signal caller, and he's a tackling machine.
And then, yeah, so the depth is fantastic because behind your two main guys, you've got Chanel that we're all optimistic about. Harris has been great, and then you've got Lee with
Who
NFL
who
experience.
had a fumble recovery in this game on the very first play.
Yep. So then the secondary, I think, feel like the safety play has been really good.
Hmm.
All of our safeties are athletic, and are all willing to tackle you and tackle aggressively.
Brian
The
Cook made
corners are all we have good tackling corners.
very.
When we sometimes you might pick on a guy like Fenton has been picked on and Watson's been picked on a little bit, but overall, I'd say the secondary's played well. Seems like all our secondary needs, if we could come up with a 22-year-old 5'11 corner out of Washington.
Yeah, I think he could slide right in there, and hopefully we'll find out some. I would assume we'll get another report on kind of how his progress is going. If not this week, next week on McDuffie, but we kind of talked about it before we started this that I'm just assuming that Trent McDuffie's going to be an all pro because he was not targeted in his 21 snaps against Arizona. And you say he didn't play because he only played 21 snaps.
So the conversation we had is that until someone does something in a Chiefs uniform, they are a zero. We've had plenty of first round picks that were never any good. And before the season, I had high hopes for each of them. We've had, expensive free agent signings that were supposed to be the next. So Smith Schuster has had an all pro caliber season once in his career, but until he catches a pass in that red jersey, he's I have no confidence in his ability to help the team.
Right.
And that's where we are with McDuffie. But if McDuffie is who we think he is, and then Fenton slides to the bench and Watson is now your third corner instead of your second, then because right now the defense is playing really well, not best defense in the league well, but the defense is playing well without two guys that are,
Starters.
yeah,
And not just starters, but important pieces. Again, they're important pieces now, but also important pieces of what this defense is trying to become in the coming years and where the vision is for this team.
you got to love that there are very few older players on this roster.
Speaking of Travis Kelsey turns 33 in just a few days, and like I always said, he's fine wine, he's churning out games. He doesn't look like he's 33, but he's
If
getting there.
if he loses a step, he's still going to be pretty close to as productive as he is because he rarely just does it off of speed,
Right. It's
you
the
know?
shiftiness and the ability to separate. And we're on a Travis Kelsey tangent now, but I mean, do you remember what the last 4 years of Jason Witten's career looked like? Because it was catch the ball and then literally stand still and wait to be tackled. He could not move. He would catch a ball 4 yards down the field and stand still.
And not that that's what we were trying to do in this show, but I never thought I would say anyone was better than Tony Gonzalez, but Travis Kelsey's more dynamic. And so then you start to have a tight end GOAT debate because there's no one in today's game that is on Kelsey's level. And statistically, he has the fifth most yardage. And Tony Gonzalez started a little bit younger and played until he was 38 to put up those numbers and had the best hands I've ever seen. Travis Kelce drops more balls than Tony Gonzalez by a long shot. And, Kelce doesn't drop a lot, but Tony didn't drop any. But he was never as dynamic as Kelce is. And I'm already ready. Kelce today is the greatest tight end in Chiefs history, even though the greatest tight end of all time played for the Chiefs.
Mm. It,
Now, you an extra 5,700 career receiving yards might make Tony Gonzalez still the greatest tight end of all time because playing that long is something.
yeah, and it's just part of the tight end revolution that really was started by Rob Gronkowski and then Travis Kelsey, changing the position
And,
from what Tony Gonzalez and Jason Witten and Shannon Sharp and guys like that made it to be.
and Tony was not a great blocker either.
Yeah,
He he was a reluctant blocker. He might have been a little better blocker than Travis, but he was not this great inline blocker. So I don't know how we got on that, but for me, I've moved. There were certain players that I said no one is ever going to move ahead of this guy on my list. My favorite pass rusher of all time is still Derek Thomas. And I thought Tony Gonzalez was that guy. I didn't think there would ever be a tight end in Kansas City I put ahead of him, but Kelsey's there.
I agree. He's at his best. We've never seen a tight end do half the things he's done.
And I'm 40 years old and I waited 50 years for that Super Bowl. So the anyone who is part of that gets a little extra credit. But so what else from this game have we missed?
I
See, did I take any notes here? Oh yeah. I said I was going to try to be negative. Noah Gray didn't have a great game. He had the touchdown. I loved that play. I loved the misdirection. Pat's like, "What's going on?" And the receivers getting yelled at, and Watson and Noah Gray sneaks it in. Great play, but like I almost could have got that one. Like if I didn't fumble it, all you had to do is fall down on the center. So then he had a drop on third down. Pass hit him in the chest. Drops the ball, and
and then he missed.
misses a block. Pat gets sacked. So Noah Gray supposed to be our next Kelsey.
Yeah,
It's Gonzalez, Kelsey, Gray. He's got to prove that one because he didn't have a great game.
one of the only other negatives that I remember is, and it's hard to say this as a negative because again you're talking about Tom Brady, but man, the Chiefs had some free shots on him and just not only could they not bring him down, they didn't really get close, other than the Snead sack, which was a huge play in the game. But Fenton had a free shot at him and just completely whiffed.
So like, okay, let's.
Um,
So in the moment, I don't know what's going through the players. It's all adrenaline. It's like I'm gonna do this. Brady didn't move, and Fenton ran around him, wrapped his arm around him, then slipped off.
it really is a testament to Tom because that's the only thing you can do it because it's the same exact thing it's been for 20 years. It's a weird little shoulder shimmy and he kind of just sneaks right by it. I don't understand it. I really don't.
Then they had slow motion, like close up on his face as Fenton got one arm on him, and he's like fighting his way through with everything he had. It was there were like three.
I think one of the other ones was Darius Harris had a free shot at him and just whiffed. And like I said, it's you at some point you got to give credit to a guy who literally cannot move for making people miss. But he somehow he does it.
So if I was wanting to sit here and be negative, what I would say is that Kansas City, by dominating that game, it was never a one possession game after 7-3, which was 5 minutes into the game. From then on, it was never a one possession game. It was dominated. If that did not clearly demonstrate that the Bucks can't beat the Chiefs because we had a little bit of fortune. Football always has good fortune that lands on a team. That fumble, like, I'm glad that our guy punched it out, but those are kind of fluky plays, and that starts us off on the right foot. And then we get you get full credit though for that blitz and the forced fumble.
Oh yeah,
It's not a fluky play,
yeah.
but I feel like we didn't demonstrate that we could dominate them if we played them again.
Right. No, I don't think that there's any that this is some sweeping declaration that the Chiefs have won the Super Bowl or anything. But it was a really well played game against a quality opponent.
And what separates wins from losses in the witching hour
Mhm.
is one play. And like, do you convert that third down? We highlighted a few of them where if somebody didn't make this tough catch right here, it's a whole different ball game.
And somehow we've gone this whole time without talking about the actual biggest negative from this game, which was the drop by Clyde. That he might still be running if he had caught that ball. He would have had a one on one with about 60 yards of grass with Antoine Winfield. The ball, it was a little bit of an awkward catch. It was kind of on his face, literally, and he jumped to catch it. But that's a play you've got to make whenever you're drafted in the first round as a receiving back.
Yeah, and that's the kind of play that can lose you a game.
Yeah, that was the one opportunity. It was 21-10 after that fourth down drop, and it was like, oh no, they might get back in it.
This is what the crazy thing. You put up 41 points. There were 3 of those plays that were third or fourth down, potentially leading to scoring drives. You had Clyde, might have been a touchdown. You had Scantling inside the 5-yard line, ball in his stomach, just drops it. And then you had Gray on a third down.
That was also in the red zone.
And 3 of those plays where when you lose a game, you say, if Gray had caught that one, we might have won this game. And we still scored 41.
How
So,
often can you leave meat on the bone like that and beat a good team by 10 on the road? I mean,
yep, take back everything I said. There's no universe in which this Bucks team can beat this Chiefs team. Take it all back. We tried to drop that one away and couldn't do it.
what else you got? Anything?
No, I think this has probably been a long
Oh,
show. It's been a fun show.
Sky Moore. And I need more Sky because he's the real deal. He's gonna be open. Just get him on the field, Andrew. That's all I ask.
The next time our kicker breaks his foot, first kicker we sign should be the one who makes the kicks.
Yeah.
We'd be 4-0 if we'd picked this kicker last week.
Yeah, that's very true. It's unfortunate but true, and I'm gonna choose not to think about it.
I've never liked them Amendolas. They're all bad in my book.
hmm
I apologize to the real person on the other end of this, but it still hurts a little bit last week. Yep, we had Sky Moore, and I had another one right
Oh,
before
I
you said
mean,
that.
Jody Fortson had just one catch, 10 yards, and a touchdown, doing his red zone weapon role and playing it well. And like I said before the season, I think he may only have 200 yards, but he could end up with 6, 7 touchdowns.
Just another weapon.
Yeah.
And then the real MVP of the game, Big Red. The mustache commercial. I must ask you about that commercial.
It was awesome. It was really awesome.
It was so genuinely like, you caught me. I like drawing mustaches on people while they're asleep.
It, I find it remarkable. Maybe the national media doesn't look at it like Chiefs fans do, but I love Andy Reid's personality and the I bet you a cheeseburger and all of it, but I just can't believe that he's been in coaching this long and never had a commercial before that.
Okay, so Andy had the great commercial. Then there were a bunch of key moments, like big plays for the Chiefs or against the Chiefs, and mostly for him in this game. But they'd pan to Andy, and he's like motionless, like he didn't even know he got the touchdown. And then you got the play where Scantling gets hit in the stomach with the ball. Andy's cussing, like throwing nothing out of his hand, like he's ready to chuck his playbook. Pat is just berating Kelsey, like something was supposed to happen there,
Yeah.
because that was the most emotion we saw out of Andy. And Pat acted like it was Travis's fault. So
Yeah.
we may never know what that one was. So he felt like Kelsey was ran in like an option route the wrong way and got in the way of the route to
Yeah.
Scantling. But whatever it was, something was supposed to happen there. And then the last thing I saw, a hot take, I think it was just someone on Twitter, which means nothing, right? But they said, if you noticed, this is, I shouldn't even say it, said they normally show Enemy all the time during the game, calling in the plays. And we haven't seen any shots of Enemy since the spat with Mahomes. And I'm not putting it out of the realm of possibility that there, since Andy's been in Kansas City, he's made changes to who calls plays. Whenever he publicly said he was giving Nagy the play calling duties at one point.
I I'm not gonna I'm gonna choose not to read into all of that because, and on some level I'm sure there is some truth to, on any given week, deciding this will be the guy who will relay information to Pat or whatever it is. But I do believe Andy, especially in big games and big moments. Maybe you look at the Colts and you think, with a good game plan, we'll just let Bieniemy have this one. I don't know. I doubt it, but who knows? But I really do believe, Andy, that it's a completely collaborative process of Andy's got 51%, like he always says. He can overrule anybody. If he wants a play, he's going to get it. But Pat's a part of that, and Bieniemy's a part of that, and Nagy's a part of that, and whoever the hell else has a headset, I guess, is a part of that. But
I don't want to sit here and be negative about Eric Bieniemy. He could be the best coach on the planet. He might get a head coaching job and lead his team to 6 Super Bowls. I don't know, because I don't. Would we know, right? But what I do know is that you don't want that friction. And he is a no nonsense guy. He's a leader of men. And when I see on the sideline, they show Nagy and Mahomes, and they're looking at these plays and they're on the same page and they're enjoying the conversation. And there seems like there's an enthusiasm towards, here's what I see. And they're having these conversations. And then, it feels like I was glad to see him come back because I thought he had a rapport with Pat from the first year on the practice squad.
yeah,
So I'm glad to see that back, and I'm glad that we can drop a bunch of passes and score 41.
yeah, no kidding.
All right. So we'll be back in a couple days with a preview of the Raiders game. Appreciate you taking time to watch the video. We are on Facebook and YouTube if you like watching videos, and we are on anywhere you get your podcast. We'll see you next time.
All right.